Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Chun joining you for this edition of Nate at 8. Thanks so much for tuning in on this Wednesday evening. We're going to be tracking those showers and thunderstorms that still continue here early on tonight. Coming up on this edition of Nate at 8, we're also going to be talking about more fog likely redeveloping for tomorrow morning. And then while we will likely dry up by tomorrow morning, we're going to be tracking some more rain going into the weekend. So in fact, we have a couple more rounds of some precipitation after this rain tapers off here early on tonight that we are going to be tracking going into the weekend. So thanks so much for tuning in. Without further ado, let's jump into things, shall we, for this edition of Nate at 8. Our current temperatures right now across the area, we did climb mid-upper 70s earlier into the afternoon. A lot of rain-cool temperatures now. You can see temperatures falling even into the 60s where we've seen some of these rain-cooled temperatures, and we're still dealing with some of these rounds of rain for this evening. And in the wake of this rain, even getting some muggy dew points into the mid-lower 60s now. Steubenville, Wheeling, that's that range where it starts to turn a bit muggy on us. You may have noticed that feeling. We had this really going throughout this week where it's been a bit muggy at times. And this touches on Austin's question joining us this evening on YouTube. I was wondering how muggy it will be throughout the week. Well, let's jump into that. And in terms of how muggy it's going to be going throughout the week, well, we'll likely deal within that range to where we're going to be in this range of, well, it's a bit humid to just muggy. And we think we can get into that range where dew points are closer to the mid 60s, maybe even climbing above the mid 60s as we look ahead going into Thursday and Friday. So watch for that bit of that humidity, a bit humid feel, if you will, continue here over the next couple of days. And at times it can just be downright muggy as well. So that's how humid it's going to feel for us. We're still going to feel a bit of that humidity here over the next couple of days. But notice what happens by Saturday. It falls off throughout the day in the wake of a cold front passage. Much dry air will filter into the area. So we're going to notice some drier and even cooler air move back into the region going throughout the weekend, especially by Sunday. Highs are back near 70 and refreshing air returns. Even by the end of the day, Saturday, refreshing air returns, but it'll stay in place then for the second half of the weekend, continuing going into early next week. Addison joining us saying hello there. And Joe, good evening to you as well. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Nate at 8. And as we do see these dew points tonight likely fall back more upper 50s coming off of these 60s this evening, just like what we had for this morning. Tomorrow morning, our limiting factor to how much we cool is likely the dew point. So what happens when that occurs? Well, as temperatures near the dew point here become saturated and we start to see fog develop. So we're going to be watching again for some patchy fog developing tomorrow morning. Now, I think the biggest change with respect from this morning going into tomorrow morning, I think what the biggest change can be in terms of our fog is that areas that saw some heavy rain or are still seeing some heavy rain this evening, these locations, you can see some dense fog develop tomorrow morning. So this fog can be more dense in spots tomorrow morning. That could be the bigger change with respect to this morning. So be prepared for that. You could come across some dense fog for tomorrow morning's commute that can slow you down a little bit. Just something to watch for. We're not tracking any heavy downpours by tomorrow morning, but that potential is there then to be dealing with some areas of dense fog coming off of these rounds of heavy rain. And talking about these rounds of heavy rain, we're still watching some heavy downpours in spots. And these have been some torrential downpours you can even say at times that we've been dealing with. And this has yielded quite a bit of rain, not for a lot of us, but for some of us, again, quite a bit of rain. Radar estimated rainfall over the last 3 hours. You could pick these spots where there again has been a lot of precipitation fall with these torrential downpours. And the first area we're going to highlight, this was earlier to the evening, was locations near Moundsville, especially just east of Moundsville in Marshall County. Radar estimated even upwards about 2 inches of rain, a little over that possibly in spots, fell into the location. And it could very well deal with these areas that we're going to cover. The possibility for some flooding was there. Flash flood guidance was about 1.5 inches. And for some of these locations in our area, even exceeding that. So the potential was there to see some flooding in spots. Thankfully now, well, the rain has even come to an end for locations Moundsville. So not going to be dealing with that flooding concern now as we extend throughout this evening. Thankfully, again, that rain has ended for those locations, but picking up quite a bit of rain earlier into the evening for locations Marshall County. Now, where we saw some of that heaviest rain and the highest in terms of what radars estimated was in Belmont County and just generally close to St. Clairsville area. So it was more specifically not only near St. Clairsville, but between St. Clairsville and Wheeling, Belmont County. Radar estimated even upwards of 3 inches, maybe even a little more than that in some spots. Again, this is all falling. A lot of this is even falling just within a matter of an hour. That's a lot of rain. And we had a torrential downpour there near the Ohio Valley Mall, near that I-70, I-470 split. And that certainly caused some hazardous travel conditions and low visibility. And you may very well be tuning in and have experienced that, but certainly some very heavy downpours within some of these locations. Now, where we currently stand near St. Clairsville, well, that real intense heavy rain has come to an end. We're still dealing with some lingering rain, not necessarily drying up, but thankfully that real intense rain has come to an end, and that should help lessen the flooding concerns that were present there earlier into this evening. But still could be watching for some lingering rain, but that intensity likely lower with respect to what we saw earlier into the evening. Another location, Columbiana County near Lisbon, just east there of Lisbon in Columbiana County. Radar estimated rainfall amounts closer to that we saw near Moundsville, upwards about 2 inches, maybe a little bit more of that. Again, still enough there to deal with some flooding concerns in a portion of Columbiana County where we currently stand for those locations. Well, just like Moundsville, drying up. We saw that threat earlier into the evening. And then where we stand right now, what we're currently watching is primarily these thunderstorms that are moving through portions, will be moving through portions primarily Harrison County and more into northern Jefferson County. So this is what we're watching right now. These are still producing some very heavy downpours from what we're seeing, what radar still estimating rainfall rates, even, upwards of 3-4 inches of rain possibly over an hour. So these are still some torrential downpours continuing in these thunderstorms now into portions of northern Jefferson, as well as into portions there of Harrison County, where radar estimated a rainfall amount there east of Caddis, between Caddis and Smithfield, could very well have been dealing with some flooding here over the past hour. But radar estimating a lot of rainfall falling there into locations into the eastern part of Harrison, the southwestern part of Jefferson County. So enough rainfall there. We're possibly dealing with some flooding concerns. Just now starting to pile up then some rainfall amounts into portions there in northern Jefferson and to the southeastern part of Carroll County. That'd be another location to watch with that torrential downpour. Nothing right now, but we'll be watching for that location as well. As again, we're still dealing with some heavy downpours there with that cell developing as torrential downpours there into portions of the northwestern portion of Jefferson County, and still watching then some heavy downpours into the eastern part of Harrison. So certainly as these pass, they're producing enough rain over a short period of time to at least deal with some minor flooding. So just something to watch for as we go throughout the evening. Not anticipating any severe risk, right? We're not anticipating any severe weather risk. It's just that these can produce some very, very heavy downpours and the potential then for at least some minor flooding as these do pass across the area. Now, these will then taper off, now that we're starting to see that sun. Now that we're starting to get to sunset, we're going to start to see a lot of these taper off here early on tonight. So especially as we lead up closer to midnight, you'll notice that a lot of the activity that we're still currently dealing with will likely be tapering off. So watch for that to really these just gradually tapering off here as we extend over the next several hours leading up to midnight. So again, at this point, they're continuing now, but at this point, we're going to start to get on that trend of downward in terms of the intensity, in terms of the coverage. We're starting to get to that point where we're going down a downward trend as we extend into the early part of tonight. And Terry says, what did you do, Nate? It's raining. I promise I didn't do the rain dance. I promise there, Terry. But yeah, certainly some torrential downpours in some of this. Renee says, didn't rain in St. Clairsville too much where Renee was tuning in, and where she's living there in St. Clairsville. Said didn't rain too much for her. Didn't rain that much in Smithfield. And I did see a rainbow, Terry says. That's a good point as well, Terry. I saw some other reports there, some people capturing rainbows. And in between these rounds of rain, some sun breaking out. So watch out. You could spot a rainbow yourself in the wake of some rain if you happen to be into the more of the hit, or in the hit and miss, equation of these scattered showers and thunderstorms. Light rain currently in Smithfield, Terry says, and Casey says, I'm scared. Oh, I'm sorry, Casey. Hopefully it won't be too bad. Again, at this point, thankfully, again, at this point, we're getting to that turning point, if you will, right? We're getting to the turning point. As the sun sets, we're going to see the intensity and the coverage of these start to gradually taper off. So we're getting to that turning point now here, going into the early part of tonight, where we're going to see the coverage and intensity these taper off again. Not anticipating anything severe. So what I mean by that, well, we're not anticipating any large hail or damaging winds or a tornado. That's not anticipated. Just going to be watching for that possibility, with some possibility of some minor flooding in spots where we're dealing with some of these very heavy downpours within these thunderstorms. So as we jump into Futurecast, like I mentioned, we're going to watch for these taper off then gradually early on tonight. So by the latter part of tonight, what we're going to be dealing with as we do a look ahead into tomorrow morning is going to be then for a lot, mainly dry conditions, but primarily what we're going to be watching for at this point would be that potential then for some patchy fog. So less of a downpour that we're going to be tracking tomorrow morning, and it's going to be more of that patchy fog. And again, with these locations that saw some very heavy downpours, that you can get some dense fog now developing in the wake of those going into tomorrow morning. It's going to rain more tonight. Well, my plants water, Renee says, not too much more as we go through tonight. Again, we could pick up a couple more showers maybe over any given location where you're tuning in, but in general, no, not going to rain too much more tonight, as we'll start to see the coverage and fall off. Again, I know some of us, yes, we're still going to get some heavy downpours with what remains here into this evening, but for a lot of us, we're going to start to see the coverage of this start to drop off. And so as we look ahead into Futurecast, Toronto, okay, so we're getting a couple more questions, so let's backtrack here. Let's jump back to radar real quick before we look ahead into Futurecast. We're getting more questions on tonight. So we look at live radar, and Renee is asking about St. Clairsville, so we'll jump into where we're at in St. Clairsville and Toronto as well. So into St. Clairsville, no, not too much more. There's another light shower, or lighter shower, still some moderate rain, but lighter with respect to that intense rain that we had earlier near St. Clairsville. So another more moderate shower there, getting ready to move back towards St. Clairsville. And Renee says you didn't pick up too much of that earlier, so likely not going to pick up too much from that shower moving back in. So likely not too much, Renee, from what remains in St. Clairsville. Probably not too much rain for the remainder of tonight. And talking about Toronto is the other question. So what can we see in Toronto? Well, that heavy rain is staying west of Toronto, but we can still see some more moderate light rain moving back in. We'll watch a cell here gaining a little more intensity there just north of Wintersville. This could gain a little more intensity, but even then still likely seeing the bulk of that heavy rain stay just west of Toronto. So yes, rain's coming your way in Toronto. The path of rainfall, yes, the rain's moving in, but we're seeing right now those real heavy downpours staying well west of Toronto at this moment. Again, we'll watch for this cell that just now starting to gain a little more steam there in Wintersville as this tracks further towards the north. That would be the, if this can gain a little more steam, maybe some heavier rain in Toronto. But as it stands now, the rain looks lighter with respect to what we're seeing into the western part of Jefferson County. So yes, Lola, rain's moving your way in Toronto. As it stands now, though, likely lighter intensity with respect to these heavy downpours that we've been seeing in some locations. Joe said we had a brief downpour here in Bel Air, saying for this evening, reporting that brief downpour that we had. And that's been the saving grace of why we haven't had even more flooding concerns, is that we're getting some very high rainfall rates, but thankfully that there's remaining, moving quick enough and the intensity is dropping quick enough that we're not dealing with, that high of rainfall rates of 2-3+ inches of rain over the entire hour, right, to pick up that much rain over the entire hour. So thankfully, that has lessened the flooding risk, but still would be surprised if we've had at least some minor flooding in spots from what we've seen, and that potential still there, I think, in spots going throughout this evening. And again, right now, we're watching into the northwestern portion of Jefferson County, locations there into more of the eastern part of Harrison County near Caddis, still some heavy rain in those locations. So that's what we're dealing with right now. If we're going to deal with the potential for some more minor flooding, it's going to be those areas that we're watching for at this hour into the eastern part of Harrison, northwestern portion of Jefferson. The eastern portion of Carroll County then would be in the future, as well as southern Columbiana County would be in the future as well throughout this evening. So those locations I mentioned now are on the areas to watch. Outside of that, things are quieting down outside of that, especially for locations south of I-70. Things are starting to quiet down if you're tuning in south of I-70. But north of I-70 for those locations I mentioned is what we're currently watching right now. So let's jump back into our future cast as we look ahead. And Terry's asking when the chance of rain is there for tomorrow. So let's start to talk about what we're going to be dealing with here over the next couple of days. And again, by tomorrow morning, not tracking downpours, just tracking that chance there for some areas of fog. And again, it can be dense where we're dealing with this rain currently going throughout this evening. Now, looking ahead going through tomorrow, a lot of tomorrow is likely dry. We have a mix of sun and clouds, and it's likely dry for much of the day tomorrow. Now, I know Futurecast isn't showing much here, but I do think by the time we get into tomorrow evening, there is that potential to deal with an isolated shower and thunderstorm. It's picking up on it some here, right? So it's depicting that isolated shower potential there closer to Morgantown. So it's picking up on that potential, but I think, overall, we can see a little bit more than what Futurecast is showing by the latter part of tomorrow. It is more of a chance, though. There's no guarantee, but there is that possibility of an isolated shower and thunderstorm for tomorrow evening, likely getting closer to the drive home, if not after that point, leading up closer towards sunset. And those high temperatures tomorrow do look warmer with respect to today, into the mid to lower 80s. Now, when we'll see that rain chance further pick up is overnight tomorrow going into Friday morning, and even closer to, if not past midnight, tomorrow night into Friday morning. And even despite this late timing, we can not only deal with thunderstorms, but the potential for a strong to severe thunderstorm. This will carry over into early Friday morning, but then a lot of this tapers off then going into Friday afternoon. Now, just like what Futurecast is showing, the potential's there for more of a widely scattered shower thunderstorm. It's going to be more hit or miss, but that potential does continue going throughout Friday, but our more widespread or numerous showers and thunderstorms are likely coming to an end after early Friday morning, as we look ahead going into the latter part of Friday. Then after that, the following round would be Friday night going into Saturday morning, that will deal with more numerous showers and thunderstorms. Again, likely even more than what Futurecast is showing. That would be the following round that we're dealing with some showers and thunderstorms. So to help summarize this, we can break this down into 3 time periods. The first one, well, it's tonight. And again, this is primarily early tonight. We're getting to that turning point now. As the sun sets, we're going to see activity gradually taper off. The intensity of these thunderstorms in terms of the rainfall will start to, gradually taper as well, as we start to see that intensity gradually drop. And from there, we're looking dry for tomorrow morning, just some patchy fog. That following round then would be tomorrow evening into Friday morning. It starts off more isolated, right? It's only a chance there for the start of this Thursday evening into early Thursday night, but late Thursday night into Friday morning, especially once we get closer to and past that midnight mark. Yes, it's late, but even at late timing, we could deal with numerous showers and thunderstorms. Yes, even the potential for a strong severe thunderstorm. A lot of that activity does taper off then throughout the day on Friday. And then the following round, when we're dealing with more numerous showers and thunderstorms, is likely Friday night into Saturday morning. And again, we'll deal with that primarily likely for the latter part of Friday night. So it can be fairly similar from what we're seeing Thursday and Friday in terms of we're dealing with most of our rain likely overnight Thursday and likely overnight Friday. And just like what we have that potential for Thursday night into Friday, yes, unfortunately, that potential is there to deal with a strong severe thunderstorm. So it's unfortunate that this is overnight and that potential is there for both time periods, Thursday and Friday. The good news is, of course, that with us getting most of our thunderstorms in the overnight hours, it does just in general lessen our potential for some severe weather. It doesn't eliminate it. As you can see, severe weather outlook still highlighting our area under marginal to slight risk for severe weather for both time periods. But just the fact that it does occur overnight, these storms will naturally have less fuel, but unfortunately it doesn't eliminate it. So we will have to keep weather aware both Thursday night and Friday night for the potential for strong severe thunderstorms. And for both time periods, all threats are on the table, unfortunately. So the potential is there for damaging winds, large hail, and yes, even a tornado cannot be ruled out. All threats are on the table or are possible during this stretch. And we're also going to be watching, just like what we have for this evening, that potential for excessive rainfall is also with us during this stretch. So both for tomorrow night as well as into Friday night. The potential's there to deal with some excessive rainfall. Then that threat will drop off Saturday, in addition to a lot of that precipitation throughout the day on Saturday. So we also have to watch for even the potential for localized or isolated flash flooding during this time as well with these heavy downpours. We also run that risk as well over that those two time periods tomorrow night as well as Friday night. So we're also watching for that. Now, on a widespread scale, I don't think rainfall amounts are quite reaching to the extent where flooding is going to be a major widespread concern. I think widespread rainfall amounts about 3/4 up to about maybe an inch and a quarter during this stretch going through Saturday. I could even see some locations maybe holding closer to a half of an inch on the lower end. Now, what Futurecast obviously picking up on here, yes, just like what we saw this evening, some of us are going to get a lot more than others, right? Where we do see these thunderstorms and pockets of heavier rain, these amounts are going to scale a lot higher on a local scale. And that's where the flooding concern, I think, really comes into play. So I think it stays more localized and isolated, but the potential is there. And it continues over the next couple of days. And again, with the primary threat going to be Thursday night as well as Friday night. So that being said, it's a good idea, stay weather aware during those two time periods and have multiple ways to receive that warning overnight. So should we be worried about flash floods this weekend? Like I said, Austin, I think it's possible, but it does look to stay more localized, isolated. I think that is rather than anything widespread, but yes, that potential is there. I do think going into the weekend, again, it's primarily Thursday night as well as Friday night is that potential. Are we expecting streamlined winds again, these storms Thursday evenings? The potential is there for some damaging winds. Yes, the potential is there for some damaging winds. The potential is there for large hail. And yes, even a tornado cannot be ruled out. Are we expecting it? No, we're not expecting it, but it is possible. Yes. When we're dealing with the potential for severe weather, that's just it. We can't say whether, it's likely or not, or we're expecting it or not, but with these severe weather, events, but it is possible. And as long as it's possible, I think it's safe to treat it as, well, it could happen, right? It's better to be safe than sorry, just in being prepared in case it does occur. So yes, that potential, unfortunately, Lola, is there for some high winds. The potential is there for some large hail, tornado. Yes, it can't be ruled out, and even flash flooding. Those all threats are on the table, unfortunately, for these two time periods. Even though they do occur overnight, the potential is there. It does naturally lessen our risk. I think, overall, the worst of this is out of our area, but nonetheless, the potential is there, and we should be keeping weather aware. And the great way to keep weather aware is have multiple ways to get the warning. So, the greatest one we have, right in our pocket, or maybe you're watching Nate at 8 on it right now. It's your mobile phone. It's a great way to receive that warning. It's perhaps the greatest way to receive that warning is mobile phone. The second greatest, I think you could say, and possibly the greatest, I think there's an argument to be had if it could be the greatest, is a NOAA weather radio. Because, these things are going to go off and they're loud. They're going to wake you up if you get that warning overnight. So if you have it, obviously you wanted to make sure it has a battery backup if it's plugged in. So in case you lose power, it's still going to go off. But, these are great as well to wake you up, and of course, they're very loud. They're going to wake you up if a warning's issued overnight. Those mobile phones, not every severe thunderstorm warning is going to, make your phone go off with the sound, but if a tornado warning were to be issued, it would, and that can help wake you up as well. Those two are, I think the best ways to get that warning for these, especially in the overnight hours when I know, a lot of us are obviously we're going to be sleeping. A lot of us are when these can occur. So those are great ways to, get that warning. Now, perhaps if you are awake or you're waking up with that warning, then other ways to, keep weather aware, stay up to date with current conditions. Obviously, television, tune in to us at WTOV9, Fox 9. Obviously, great ways to tune in as we're going to, be giving you some updates throughout the night if if a tornado warning were to be issued and we're breaking in, right? Good ways to keep weather aware in that regard, or for internet, social media, right now, just like we're doing right now. If we're live streaming, giving updates. If it's a severe thunderstorm warning and we're not breaking in on air, obviously, we could be live streaming some severe weather updates on social media. So other great ways to stay up to date with what the current conditions are. Now, one that's not recommended is a warning siren, tornado siren, not recommended. Why? Well, they're great tools to be used outdoors. And I know some of us, if we're living close enough to it, that yes, you still could hear it even indoors. But you have to keep in mind that when we're dealing with some of these thunderstorms, with that, if we're dealing with some heavy downpours, maybe even some hail, maybe some high winds, these all can muffle out the sound of that siren. So it's not recommended to be used as a way to receive a warning if you are indoors, because of that situation where that sound can get muffled out. Maybe you don't hear it. A lot of these more modern homes are starting, obviously more modern homes are starting to be built with better insulation and, more sound dampening where, may not hear it in that way as well. And yes, I know if you live close enough, you still could hear it, but it's just in general not recommended to be relied on for a way to get that warning, especially considering just the fact that with the heavy rain and possibly some hail or high winds, that it can muffle out that sound in that event, that you may not be able to hear it over some very heavy rain or large hail or even some high winds. So just not recommended to away, but certainly have multiple ways to get that warning. Of course, download the Severe Weather Team 9 mobile app. Going to be a great tool as well. It's a great tool in general to have on a daily basis. It can alert you if rain's coming your way, if lightning's been detected near you. A great tool to have, and another way that you can get that warning as well, right? It'll alert you, if a severe thunderstorm warnings for your location or a tornado warning, it'll alert you as well if something is issued for your area. As well. And Terry says, thank you. You're awesome, Nate. Thanks for the review. Well, thank you. That's very kind, Terry. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in this evening. So as we conclude in our 9+1 day forecast, again, that potential for a shower thunderstorm is there tomorrow evening. I think a lot of tomorrow is going to be dry. And even then, it's just a chance, right? Even then, it's a chance. I think a lot of us are going to end up staying dry for the daytime tomorrow. But nonetheless, just, don't be too caught off guard. Maybe you're one of those locations that do happen to be on the hit miss side of that. It's not a great chance, but it is possible. So just keep an eye on the sky, keep weather aware, good to go for tomorrow. Again, not a great chance. Most of the day is dry, highs mid-lower 80s. So we're warm. It's a bit muggy. It's more of a summer feeling day, that's for sure, for your Thursday. Friday still looking warm and seasonably warm really for this time of the year. And again, more on par with our summer days for your Friday. Again, we'll deal with some of the showers and thunderstorms right at the beginning of the day. And yes, the potential's there. It's not a great chance. We could see more of those widely scattered showers and thunderstorms redeveloping throughout the day, but I think the coverage is going to be very hit or miss. And, I think the greatest coverage is going to be still Thursday night into Friday morning. And then the same story, one more round there, Friday night into Saturday morning. That's where we're still dealing with the greatest coverage of showers and thunderstorms. And the coverage will then likely just drop off throughout the day on Saturday. So by the end of the day, Saturday, we've likely dried up across the area. And then we're staying dry for the remainder of the weekend. Notice the cool down that we get. And also notice when we deal with that drop in humidity, well, those lows drop off as well, right? Always a good indication of not only how much cloud cover we're getting, but also the dew points and the humidity. If you're dealing with our low temperatures in the 60s, there's good odds that it's at least a bit humid. And that's exactly what we're seeing over the next couple of days. We're still dealing with those low temperatures into Friday and Saturday morning, or even into the 60s. That's very warm for this time of the year, and a good indication that's going to be muggy during that stretch. But when we see some dry air move in, we start to lose that cloud cover more, and we can even fall back in the 40s, even more of a chilly morning going into early next week. And certainly a cool day by Sunday and Monday. Those highs are just getting into the 70s, if that. So I think we're just to the 70s, roughly right around 70 degrees Sunday into Monday. So certainly a cool down will be felt, and the drop in humidity will be felt throughout the weekend. And we'll get a couple days there, if not 3 days, where we're staying dry, and that will be out ahead of then more showers likely developing for the middle of next week, that we'll see some more showers move back into the area with an overall cooler pattern. So we are for next week likely cooler with respect to what we're dealing with for this week. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. I'm going to, of course, continue to keep a close eye on these thunderstorms as we go throughout the evening. You can always tune in to Nathan Shutt News 9 in Shutt WTOV on Facebook or X for the latest updates. Been posting throughout this evening on those thunderstorms. A good way to keep updated with the latest information. Tuning in as we track what still is coming our way. And again, we are at the turning point. We are at the turning point now at this time that we're going to start to see that, again, it's the turning point now early on tonight. As the sun sets, we're going to start to see the coverage of these storms gradually drop. We're going to see the intensity of these in terms of the heavy downpours gradually drop. So we're at the turning point now here for tonight. And that will then, of course, start to lessen the flooding concerns here that we've had in spots early on tonight as well. And yeah, would certainly start to see that drop off. And again, after here early on tonight, once we dry back up, then the 2 time periods to really watch the greatest rain chances will be more in the overnight, again, for tomorrow night as well as Friday night. So those are 2 time periods with the greatest rain chance now looking ahead. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. I'm going to be off the next couple of days, so we will not have another edition of Nate at 8 for this week, but I really appreciate you all tuning in. We will have our next edition of Nate at 8 coming up next week. So until then, I hope everyone has a wonderful here stretch going into the weekend, a wonderful weekend. Again, stay weather aware over the next, those 2 nights, not tonight, but as we get into Thursday night and Friday night, keep weather aware, have multiple ways to get that warning. Stay tuned for the latest with Severe Alert Team 9 meteorologist Amanda Verrier. She's going to keep you updated going into those overnight hours as I'm off. So make sure to stay tuned with the latest for her. And of course, you can always catch Chief Meteorologist Jeff Exheim for latest in the mornings as well. And I'll be coming up tonight for the latest at News 9 at 10 on Fox 9, News 9 tonight 11. I'll give you the latest on where we stand with these showers and thunderstorms tonight as we'll watch them likely taper off during that time period. Thanks so much, guys. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you on the next edition of Nate at 8.